Welcome back to week 5 of the Scout Report, where we take a look at the potential draft eligible prospects for 2020, just so we get better familiar with some of these names. But before that, what's crack-a-lack? And it's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead and leave a thumbs up if you enjoy the content. And if you really do enjoy the content, go ahead and subscribe, become a bro, and do that. It's much appreciated, much obliged. Little update on my upcoming 7-round mock draft. Whew, 7 rounds, it's gonna be crazy. But anticipate it somewhere between week 6 and week 7. I'm gonna wait till after week 6, so we got the most updated draft order, and then I'm just gonna kind of project from there. And yeah, I'm gonna include compensatory picks, so it's gonna be wild. It's a deep, dark world when it comes to compensatory picks, and I've learned a lot. So we're gonna include that. More bang for your buck. I want to include as many prospects as possible so we can kind of shed some light on them, and that way we get more familiar with those prospects, just kind of like what I do here. But yeah, the graphics done for that. I just gotta wait till week 6. And so far I have evaluated over I think it's 312 or 317 prospects currently, and I'm right now looking a little more into like the smaller schools. So because typically you see an average of 18 players from the small division schools in this draft, so I want to make this as realistic as possible. And you know what, they got a lot of solid potential draft eligible prospects themselves. But yeah, so let's go ahead and let's talk about this week in college football. We're going to start with Tua, because he ripped apart Ole Miss. Ripped them apart. I mean, this guy, he is currently he's still my top rated quarterback, and he's in my top 5 on my big board. He went ahead and went for 26 of 36 for 418 yards, 6 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. Just a quick little caveat. 67% of his passing yards actually have come after the catch. Not that that's important, but a big knock on Tua has been really not the quality of his arm, but his arm strength, the zip on his arm, so to speak. Can he fit it quick into tight windows, and can he really push the ball downfield? He's got great downfield accuracy. I don't think that's a big question, because right now the big debate is between Tua and Justin Herbert from Oregon. Is Herbert has ridiculous arm talent. It's just he's been kind of so this year. As far as Tua, he's been consistent. So I lean more towards the consistency over the ridiculous arm talent. But I mean, they're both quality prospects. So, I mean, what are we really doing here? Let's go ahead and talk about our next prospect. That's going to be Wake Forest's Jamie Newman. Newman faced Boston College this week. He went 21 of 33 for 243 yards. He had an interception, but he had 2 touchdowns, as well as over 100 yards rushing. The guy's wild, and he's right now the highest graded passer in college football on passes 10 yards or more downfield. He's just a junior, so he might return. I have him currently as a late day 3 prospect, but I think odds are he will return for another year of eligibility and try to increase that draft stock. But a very interesting guy right now in this pretty darn good quarterback class. As far as the bad, a guy I really like is Tyler Johnston the third, or the second. It's the third, from UAB. He had a really rough game this week against Western Kentucky. Threw 4 picks. Just looked bad. The defense really kept him in that game. It was like 20-13. They ended up losing, but it was a pretty bad game. That doesn't really diminish what he's accomplished for the most part of this year, because the guy's got arm talent. I just spent the first part of this video talking about Justin Herbert's arm talent. The guy's got arm talent. Not necessarily the biggest arm, but it's there. He's only a redshirt sophomore, so I expect him to return. But he kind of reminds me of Gardner Minshew. He's kind of Minshew-esque. And we all know that man's the man, the myth, the legend. He's tearing it apart right now for Jacksonville. But yeah, I right now see Johnston as a late day 3 prospect, maybe like in that 5th, 6th round mix. But yeah, you know what? Another guy to keep on the radar. As far as running backs go, Chuba Hubba Bubba Hubbard, man, from Oklahoma State. He's moving up my boards. I still have him in that day 3 territory, but now he's closer to that early day 3 territory. He went off against Kansas State. 25 carries for 296 yards, a touchdown. The man's averaging almost 12 yards per carry in that game, and he leads all of college football by a large margin as far as the rushing leader. He had 2 receptions in that game, and that was actually second most on the team. They didn't really pass at all. Really, it was only what's his name, Tylan Wallace getting a majority of the targets there. But this guy's a good prospect. He's shown to be a receiver from last season, so I really like him. I expect him to stay. He's a redshirt sophomore, but keep an eye on this guy. He is moving up boards. 2 receivers not to sleep on is Devontae Smith of Alabama and Trey Walker of San Jose State. Devontae Smith is in that crazy Alabama receiving core. Tua had a heck of a day. Well, shoot, Devontae Smith had a monster of a day. This guy went for 11 receptions, almost 300 yards, had 5 TDs. It was ridiculous. And like I said, he plays in that that ridiculous receiving core there at Alabama, and this guy shouldn't be slept on. I honestly believe that Alabama might have 3 wide receivers taken in the first 4 rounds of this draft. He looked very good. Now, Trey Walker from San Jose State, he returned last week from injury, had 12 receptions for 161 yards against Arkansas this week. The production didn't quite really match what he was doing on the field. The guy was a baller. He was a monster against Air Force in a losing effort. 6 receptions, 69 yards. Didn't have any TDs, but like I said, he looked really good. I think both are currently early day 3 picks. Smith, he's got a little more height on him. They're about the same size, but I really do like I like what I'm seeing from both these prospects. A guy that's kind of in this discussion for top tight end is Cheyenne O'Grady from Arkansas against Texas A&M. This guy had a game, 8 receptions, 91 yards. The tools are there. The physical tools are there. He is a playmaker, and especially right now with Jared Pickney from Vanderbilt not looking so hot. I mean, this tight end class is there's like 5 to 6 guys that could honestly be the first tight end taken. You got Albert O from Missouri. Hunter Bryant's having a crazy year there at Washington. There's Harrison Bryant from Florida Atlantic. Purdue has another one, and Hopkins. It's just a really good tight end class. Not like I don't think any of these guys really are right now first round worthy, but in day 2, I expect those, like, these 6 guys to definitely hear their names called. And then we head to the offensive line because Josh Jones had himself a day. This is a guy I've been raving about for the last few weeks, and he allowed 0 pressures on 29 pass blocking snaps against North Texas. Yes, it's North Texas. He doesn't really face that elite competition. He had a big game earlier in the year against who was it against? Oklahoma. I had to think about it. Oklahoma. I mean, he had to face off against them, and he did phenomenal. This is a guy I don't think until the Senior Bowl and the Combine is really going to shoot up boards. I right now have him there at it's kind of like a tie between him and Samuel Cosme from Texas as my 4th and 5th tackle to come off the board. Both have 2nd round grades. They'll probably go, or at least one of them will probably go in the 1st round, because tackle is a position that's typically highly sought in the NFL. Now at Clemson, my boy Tremaine Ankrum, dude. This guy, I think he projects better as a guard in the NFL, but he has been playing very well against very stiff competition this year. He's allowed no pressures on 35 pass blocking snaps. He plays tackle there at Clemson. Like I said, I think he's better at a guard, but a guy to definitely keep your eyes on. And then Nick Harris The center for Washington, just phenomenal against USC. Allowed no pressures on 34 pass blocking snaps. This is a guy that I definitely expect to be in the round 2 area, and I'm very giddy, a little excited about this offensive line class. I think they're really good, and there might not be like blue chip top prospects outside of Tristan Wirfs and Andrew Thomas, but it's not like the prospects, the potential, the upside, if you want to say, falls off the cliff. This is a pretty decent offensive line class. On to defense, let's talk about Penn State's Yetur Gross-Matos, because this guy, he looks the part of an NFL pass rusher. I mean, he's got the size, athleticism. I mean, but these last 2 weeks, though, he faced Pittsburgh, Maryland, and he wasn't exactly unstoppable. It's very noticeable. He has a very limited pass rush moveset, which isn't the worst thing in the world. And I believe many teams, many coaches, they're going to be willing to spend a first-round pick on this guy because the physical tools are there. And they'll be like, we could just teach this guy. I mean, we saw with Michigan's Rashawn Gary just in 2019. The Packers went ahead and they spent, I think it was the 12th overall pick on him, despite his lack of production. But, I mean, Gross-Matos, he didn't have the lack of production that Gary did. But I have him currently as a second-round prospect. But I feel like this guy's probably going to go in the first round just because, like I said, the physical tools are just... Notre Dame's Julian Akawara and Khalid Kareem just had a feast against Virginia. They combined for almost 6 sacks. They had 6 tackles for losses, 3 hurries, and a fumble recovery. Now, caveat, their prior 3 games, they had 0 sacks. Last week, they weren't completely shut out last week against Georgia. They both of them had their turns against Andrew Thomas, we know he's one of the elite prospects there at tackle, and it was back and forth, as you expect from top prospects. So I really like these guys. I said it earlier in some of my ranking videos. Kareem kind of reminds me of Trey Flowers as far as his playing style and what he can do for defenses, showing different looks, essentially a chess piece. And Okawara is just, physically, that first step is disgusting. I expect him to be kind of maybe a late first, mid first, maybe if their team's really reaching for a pass rusher. But I like both of these guys immensely. On to the inside, and let's talk about a guy that I have hated on, or at least people will say I've hated on. I just think he was a bit overhyped, but in this game against Mississippi State, he unloaded. He downright bullied another draft-eligible prospect, Darrell Williams from Mississippi State. Brown demanded double teams. This guy was truly a monster. He had 2 QB pressures. He won a majority of his pass rushes. The guy, I know a lot of teams are going to be real high on him. He'll probably be a mid-first round pick. Big question for me was, what does he offer as far as the pass rush from the interior? That looked really good this game. I don't want to base it on just one game, though. You got to do it as a collective, and he has struggled in that aspect. He's going to be a phenomenal run blocker the next level, but honestly, I have him. He's graded as a first-round pick. I wouldn't really take him until the late first round, but expect him to be somewhere in that like 10 to 20 range. Then I got a couple of linebackers here. Well, they play defensive end, but they're probably going to be linebackers at the next level. At least I think they should be. We got Zach Bond from Wisconsin. The guy was a menace against Northwestern. He's been a menace all year, but he had 7 tackles. He had 1.5 tackles for loss. He had 3 quarterback hurries. He doesn't necessarily have the strength to really put his hand in the dirt and come off the edge. He won't really bully any tackles. I think he fares better at the next level, slimming down and being an off-ball linebacker, kind of like Joe Schubert from Cleveland. And talking about that, let's talk about Alabama's Anthony Jennings, another guy I had on my overrated, overhyped. Let's say overhyped. Overrated's kind of a bit much, but hyped list. A lot of people see him as a first round pick. I think he's a day 3 pick. I think if he slims down, and this would be, he'd have to drop like 15, maybe 20 pounds to be an off-ball linebacker, but I think it's definitely doable. The guy's got a ridiculous wingspan. He just doesn't have strength. He doesn't have the explosion to really come off the edge, and I just think he'll fare better as a second level defender. But a guy, I think if he does that, he's more of maybe a day 2 prospect, still kind of early day 3, but I think he will fare a lot better, and he might get drafted a lot higher. Now into the secondary, and no one's looked better than Jeffrey Okudah from Ohio State. He had 2 tackles, 2 interceptions. He graded 90.7 from Pro Football Focus. He had a defensive stop in there. He is like I said, no corners looked better. I think right now, currently, he's a top 10 type of prospect. So I fully anticipate him to be the first corner, probably the first secondary player off the board. Virginia's Bryce Hall will be right up there. I don't think a lot of teams are as high on him as I am. From what it sounds like, a lot of people kind of see him as a day 2 prospect. I don't think that's the case. I think he is currently my he's my 3rd ranked corner off the board. He kind of struggled this week against Notre Dame. He had 4 tackles. He had a pass interference that was kind of questionable, but he allowed 6 receptions for 30 yards. He was mainly played on another draft eligible prospect in Chase Claypool from Notre Dame. Again, not his finest game, but overall, this guy, he is a very physical corner. I like what I see. He's up there with Christian Fulton. I think Okudah from Ohio State's kind of separated himself from the pack currently, but I still see this guy as a top 15, top 20 pick. Then there's Levonta Taylor from Florida State. This guy's kind of been playing everywhere in the secondary, and against NC State, he was just a monster. 6 tackles, tackle for loss, and he allowed 2 receptions for -1 yard. That's wild. I think this guy definitely day 2. He's looked very good on that Florida State team that surprisingly not doing so hot, but they are loaded with talent. They are loaded. Then there's some safeties I want to discuss. Liberty's Seneca Espinoza Jr. He's just been a monster. He's graded above 70 for Pro Football Focus in every game this season. That's 5 games if you weren't counting. He's had 2 picks. One being he returned it for a touchdown. I think that was just last week. Then the other, he tracked this receiver who lined up in the slot. He tracked him down on a vertical route. It was just insane. And then Washington's secondary has just been beautiful this year. Miles Bryant is a guy that's really looked good, a guy that can come up and play in the slot. He's been playing safety almost exclusively this season, but both these guys I think are in the day 2 range. That's it for the video. Go ahead, do the YouTube stuff. Much appreciated, much obliged. Be anticipating that stinking 7th round mock draft, man. I'm excited. I love talking football, especially the NFL draft. But until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.